Hello, YouTube. I came across a super interesting um, paper uh, from August 2004 entitled Teleportation Physics Study. It is by the Air Force Research Laboratory, one of my favorite places for crazy patents and crazy research information. Um, I was really looking into all of the latest hubbub about um, quantum teleportation of photons um, and communicate for communication and quantum entanglement as teleportation, mainly for communication purposes, security purposes, but it's all leading to research and breakthroughs in actual teleportation of matter, humans. Because when you can teleport information, large scale, like large storage of information, large stores of information from one place to another, all we are is information. Really, at the core, we are code, so that's it won't it's not hard to make that leap. But what I did come across, and this really just blew my mind. A lot of it is just really mind blowing. So I wanted to make this video. I know that I have stopped on the Angels Among Us series, but that's just temporary. I've got some videos I'm going to put out about that. I've actually been out of town through the holidays, so it's put me behind, but I'm about to go video posting crazy, so we're going to get on this thing and get some good information out there about lots of cool stuff. This is um, dates covered 2001 to 2003, I guess, released 2004. Author Eric W. Davis. This address right here, check this out. Look it up on Google Maps and look into a little bit of their history and stuff. Warp Drive Metrics in San Rafael, Rafael, Las Vegas, of course. You got to be out there in the desert when you're doing warp drive metrics, right? So, abstract. Oh, availability approved for public release, distribution unlimited, which is crazy to me that, and you'll see why. This was, normally they don't let stuff like this out of the hat. Name of responsible person, Franklin B. Mead Jr. And it's even got his telephone number. Damn, what are they doing? Somebody's just dropped the ball, screwed the pooch. Here we go. Abstract. This study was tasked with the purpose of collecting information describing the teleportation of material objects, providing a description of teleportation as it occurs in physics, its theoretical and experimental status, and a projection of potential applications. The study also consisted of a search for teleportation phenomenon occurring naturally under laboratory conditions that can be assembled into a model describing the basis technological development and its potential applications. The characteristics of teleportation were defined and physical theories were evaluated in terms of their ability to completely describe the phenomenon. Contemporary physics, as well as theories that presently challenge the current physics paradigm, were investigated, as they should be. The author identified the proposed two unique physics models for teleportation that are based on the manipulation of either the general relativistic space-time metric, or which is Einstein's baby, or the space-time vacuum electromagnetic zero-point fluctuations, which is Tesla's baby, and where our current physics is gonna inevitably have to go because our standard model has been broke and kicked and beat down, and they just can't lie about it anymore. That's another story. Naturally occurring anomalous teleportation phenomenon that were previously studied by the United States and foreign governments were also documented in the study and are reviewed in the report. The author proposes an additional model for teleportation that is based on a combination of the experimental results from the previous government studies and advanced physics concepts. Numerous recommendations outlining proposals for further theoretical and experimental studies are given in the report. The report also includes an extensive teleportation bibliography. I haven't read all 88 pages yet. I really wanted to go over it live. I'm really curious if they mentioned the Philadelphia experiment in here. Um, I didn't see it, but it doesn't mean that it's not in here. I'm gonna do an in-depth reading of this, but using government drawings, blah blah blah. Um, Rainy Adams, I've heard that name. Philip Kessel, heard that name. Okay, introduction, teleportation, um, lots of just cool stuff in here. And all of these that say just teleportation, 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 we're gonna get a good description in this of what each one is and how the Air Force goes about distinguishing the types. Um, so glossary. Here's all of your great military um, prefixes. So both of them are pretty self-explanatory. There might be a couple of them that you don't know, like psychokinesis, People's Republic of China, polarizable vacuum, representation of general relativity. If there's anything like this, we'll come back if we need to. The study would not have been possible without a very generous support of Dr. Frank Mead, the man, senior scientist at the Advanced Concepts Office of the Air Force, Propulsion Directorate at Edwards, collegial collaboration, ready assistance, and constant encouragement were invaluable to me. Mead's out of the box, where's it at? Mead's professionalism and excellent report with out of the box thinkers excites and motivates serious exploration into advanced concepts. Good man, Mead. Good man. Don't let them fuck you around. Excuse my language, because they will. Or they'll lock you in a box. And there are two colleagues who provide important contributions to this study that I wish to acknowledge. First, I would like to express my thanks and deepest appreciation to longtime mentor Robert L. Ford. Bob Ford was the first to influence my interest in interstellar flight and advanced breakthrough physics concepts. Future magic. Remember that, okay? Because this is a term that gets used by the ones in the know. I've heard it before. I don't know if you've ever heard it, but if you start reading these papers, and especially a lot of the FOIA stuff that's been declassified, you will come across this term, future magic, and that is basically um, things that they've already figured out, but they're saying that they are just around the corner, whatever. Um, Second, I would like to express my sincere thanks and appreciation to a longtime friend, colleague, mentor, Hal Putoff. If you don't know who he is, look him up. Institute of Advanced Studies, Austin. Um, for many discussions on applying his polarizable vacuum general relativity model to a quasi-classical teleportation concept. Hal taught me to expand my mind, and he encourages me to think outside the box. He also gave me a great deal of valuable insight and personal knowledge about the remote viewing program. Okay, people, why this is important to teleportation is because, and we will get into it, psychic teleportation, where you teleport things to different places with your mind. And I'm not joking. People, yourself, and material objects like cars and military equipment. Last, I'm not joking. Last, I would like to offer my gratitude and thanks to my business manager. Why in the hell he gets it all? I mean, this is a pretty in depth article, I guess. Preface: the teleportation physics study is divided into 4 phases. Phase 1, a review. I'm going to fly through some of this. Phase 1, a review and documentation of quantum teleportation, its theoretical basis, technological development, and its potential application. 2, develop the textbook description of teleportation. 3, consisted of a search for teleportation phenomenon. Characteristics of teleportation were defined, and physical theories were evaluated in terms of their ability to completely describe the phenomenon. Okay, the theories that provided the best chance of explaining teleportation were selected. Phase 4, the final report. The report contains 5 chapters. Chapter 1, an overview, textbook descriptions. 2, proposes 2 quasi-classical physics concepts. The second is based on the polarizable vacuum general relativity approach and treats space-time metric changes in terms of equivalent changes in the vacuum permittivity and permeability constants. These concepts are theoretically developed and presented. Um, Key theoretical physics, its theoretical basis, technological development, and its applications. Key theoretical experimental and applications breakthroughs are identified. The series of theoretical and experimental research programs proposed. Chapter 4 gives an overview of alternative teleportation concepts that challenge and present the present physics paradigm. These concepts are based on the existence of parallel universes, spaces, and or extra space dimensions. The theoretical, which we already know now that by the quantum computers, that these dimensions and the Mandela effect, these dimensions exist. The theoretical and experimental, they're no longer theoretical. The theoretical and experimental work that has been done to develop these concepts is reviewed, recommendations made. Chapter 5, an in depth overview of unusual teleportation phenomenon that occur naturally and under laboratory conditions. Okay, here we go. Introduction. The concept of teleportation was originally developed during the golden age of the 20th century science fiction literature. Okay, the teleportation concept has also appeared in episodes of Popular Science, blah, blah, blah. This is just background. However, Robert L. Ford, 2001, stated that the modern hardcore sci fi literature, with the exception of Star Trek, abandoned teleportation because writers believe that it has more to do with the realms of parapsychology, paranormal, psychic, aka psychic, and imaginative fantasy than the realm of science, which we know now that's crap. So he goes on to say that now the more current science fiction is getting back into um, starting to promote it again, investigated several colleagues, both inside and outside government, this is important, the crescendo of scientific and popular literature appearing in the 90s and as recently as '03 has raised public awareness of the new technological possibilities offered by teleportation. As a, as for the psychic aspect of teleportation, it became known to Forward and myself, along with several colleagues both inside and outside of government, that anomalous teleportation has been scientifically investigated and separately documented by the Department of Defense. Remember, look, this key thing: scientifically investigated and separately documented. Separately documented. Black budget by the Defense Department. Okay. It has been recognized that extending the present research in quantum teleportation and developing alternative forms of teleportation physics would have a high payoff impact on communications and transportation technologies in the civilian and military sectors. It is the purpose of the study to explore the physics and teleportation and delineate its characteristics and performances, and to make recommendations for further studies in support of Air Force Advanced Concepts programs. Remember that. Air Force Advanced Concepts. The reason for them to continue on in this and not dump it was because a lot of what they looked into had was real. It was actually working. Psychic teleportation. Teleportation works, and it works in nature, and it works in a lot of ways that they know, but they're not going to talk about yet. I'll just say that. Definition of teleportation. Okay. Teleportation sci fi, the disembodied transport of persons or inanimate objects. Teleportation psychic, the conveyance of persons or inanimate objects by psychic means. We will call this P teleportation. Okay. SF teleportation is sci-fi. Teleportation engineering, the vacuum or space-time metric, the conveyance of persons or inanimate objects across space by altering the properties of the space-time vacuum or by altering the space-time metric geometry. We'll call that VM teleportation. Okay. Quantum entanglement, the disembodied transport of the quantum state of a system and its correlations across space or another system, which system refers to any single or collective particles of matter energy, such as baryons, protons, neutrons, leptons, electrons, photons, atoms, ions, basically everything that matter is made of. We will call this Q. Okay. And this is where we are. This was, keep in mind, this was '04. Right now in 2019, they're just now saying that they have had success in the laboratory with teleportation of information, photons, basically the very minimal um, things, which this paper was done 16 years ago. You think I ain't even going to go there. We will examine each of these in detail. Okay. VM teleportation. A comprehensive literature search for VM teleportation within the genre of space-time metric engineering yielded no results. Of course, no one in the general relativity community has thought to apply the Einstein field equation to determine whether there are solutions compatible with the concept of teleportation. Therefore, I will offer two solutions that I believe will satisfy the definition for VM teleportation. The first solution can be found in the class of transferable wormholes, traversable wormholes, giving rise to what I call a stargate. A stargate is essentially a wormhole with a flat face shape or for the throat, as opposed to the spherical shape throat of the Morris and Thorne traversable wormhole, which was derived from a spherically symmetric Lorentzian spacetime metric that prescribes the wormhole geometry, where by inspection we can write the traversable wormhole metric tensor in the form using standard spherical coordinates, where c is the speed of light, or the time or the time and space coordinate indices circumference indicates circumference is freely specifiable redshift function that defines the proper time lapse through the wormhole throat, and is freely specifiable shape function that determines the wormhole throat's spatial hypersurface geometry. Such spacetimes are asymptotically flat. The Einstein field equation requires that a localized source of matter energy be specified in order to determine the geometry that the source induces on the local spacetime. We could also work the Einstein equation backwards by specifying the local geometry in advance, and then calculate the matter energy source required to induce the desired geometry. The Einstein field equation thus relates to spacetime geometry terms comprised of the components of the metric tensor and their derivatives. The Einstein tensor to the local matter energy source terms comprised of the energy and stress tension densities. The stress energy tensor, the flat face wormhole or stargate, is derived in the following section. Okay, I know that's a lot of stuff that might be over the head of most people that don't understand Einstein's theory of relativity and what they're saying there about that. But basically, well, let me read this. The flat face traversable wormhole solution is derived from the thin shell, aka junction condition or surface layer, formalism of the Einstein equations. We adapt Weiser's development in the following discussion. The procedure is to take two copies of the flat Minkowski space and remove from each identical regions of the form where omega, I think this is omega, is a three-dimensional compact space-like hypersurface. I forgot what this one is a time-like straight line time axis. Then identify these two incomplete space-times along the time-like boundaries. So that gives you something to measure off of matter-like. The resulting space-time is geodesically complete and possesses two asymptotically asymptically, I can never say that word, sorry, flat regions connected by a wormhole. The throat of the wormhole is just the junction, a two-dimensional space like hypersurface. So it's a flat ring or a standing ring that looks flat, at which the two original Minkowski spaces are identical. Here we go, we got pictures. So this is the throat, okay? This is like a ring, and this is the surface, the hypersurface, and this is the line, okay? The diagram of a simultaneous view of two remote compact regions. So this would go 1 and 2, used to create the wormhole throat, where time is suppressed in this representation. Okay, here's a better one. The space diagram, figure 1, the same diagram except as viewed by an observer sitting in region omega who looks through the wormhole throat and sees remote region dotted area inside the circle on the other side. So imagine if you were looking through this, you would see where you were going to land, okay? So as you go through, I mean, you would literally just like pass through it like you would walk through a mirror. But in actuality, you're traversing a huge distance, hence teleportation. The resulting space time is everywhere, Riemann flat, except possibly at the throat. Also, the stress energy tensor in the space time is concentrated at the throat with the, what is this, infinity something function singularity there. This is a consequence of the fact that the space-time metric at the throat is continuous but not differentiable, while the connection is discontinuous, thus causing a Riemann curvature to possess a infinite function singularity, causing undesirable gravitational tidal forces there. The magnitude of this function singularity can be calculated in terms of the second fundamental form on both sides of the throat, which we presume to be generated by the localized thin shell of matter energy. The second fundamental form represents the intrinsic curvature of the hypersurface, the wormhole throat, telling how it is curved with respect to the enveloping four-dimensional spacetime. The form of the geometry is simple, so the second fundamental form at the throat is calculated. Okay, so that's basically that on that one. I'm going to move along so it doesn't, we don't take so much time. Thin shell of mass energy. So this is it right here. This is your linear um, matter energy, or rather two-dimensional space-like hypersurface. Okay, so say you started here, this surface would like basically drop you down a, say, imagine you were, the way I get this is if you got on this, it would like drop you down like you were falling into a hole, basically. But you wouldn't, you'd be traversing a surface, but it would be a flying down type thing to your destination. um so let's move down, down, down. These are Einstein equations. We are dealing with negative surface energy density and negative surface tensions. This result is in fact the primary matter energy requirement for traversable wormholes, as was proved by at the later by Weiser within the paradigm of classical Einstein general relativity. The negative surface tension, positive outward pressure, aka gravitational repulsion or anti-gravity, is needed to keep the throat open and stable against collapse. The reader should not be alarmed at this result. Negative energies and negative stress tensions are an acceptable result both mathematically and physically, because anti-gravity has been known about for the past 70 years, if you didn't know, and they manifest gravitational repulsion, anti-gravity, in and around the wormhole throat. Only needs to understand what it means for stress energy to be negative within the proper context. Yeah, you don't need to know about anti-gravity and how whatever. In general relativity, the term exotic is used in place of negative. Uh-huh. Okay. In a short, negative energy arises from Heisenberg's quantum uncertainty principle, which requires that the energy density of any electromagnetic, magnetic, electric, or other fields must fluctuate randomly, even in a vacuum where the average energy density is zero and the energy density fluctuates. This means that the quantum vacuum can never remain truly empty in the classical sense of the term. The quantum picture of the vacuum is that of a turbulent plenum of virtual energy non-conserving particle pairs that spontaneously pop in and out of existence. The notion of zero energy in quantum theory corresponds to the vacuum being filled with such fluctuations going on, which provides energy because you have constant movement and things making energy, friction and so forth. This issue is further elaborated on and clarified in greater detail. Um, so, if you want to know more about this one, I think I've hit the highlights on it. You can go back and read this paper. I will put a link to it in the description. Here we go. Virtual electron, virtual photon. This is a good read. Good read. Photons can change into a variety of short-lived or virtual particles as they fly through the vacuum. The processes above, represented by Feynman diagrams, are two-loop processes. They affect light speed. The schematic of vacuum quantum field fluctuations, zero-point field fluctuations involved in the light-by-light scattering process that affects the speed of light. Now, this is the Air Force. Now, keep in mind, this isn't the air. I mean, this is they know all about anti-gravity and he just basically told you that zero point energy has to exist and has to there is ways to access it because it has to exist just from the simple fact that things are popping in and out of existence in the space-time vacuum which create the energy. It's all around us. It's not theoretical. It's there. It has to be there just by law. The role of virtual particle pairs in determining the vacuum analogous to that of atoms, molecules in determining the relative permittivity of the dielectric material. We know that the absorption re-emission of photons by atoms, molecules in a transparent medium, there are no strongly absorbing resonances, so the atoms, molecules remain in their excited states for a very short time before re-emitting photons, is responsible for the refractive index of the medium, which results in the reduction of the speed of light for photons propagating through the medium. This absorption re-emission process is also known in physics as a scattering process. We know from experiment that a change in the medium leads to a change in the thus resulting in the change of the refractive index. The key point arising from this analogy is that a modification of the vacuum produces a change, resulting in a subsequent change, and hence a corresponding change in the vacuum refraction index. So we've since proved that the suppression of light scattering by virtual particle pairs, coherent light by light scattering in the vacuum, cause an increase in the speed of light accompanied by a decrease in the vacuum refraction index. So they just told you by experiment that they've gone faster than the speed of light with particles and reduced the space, the vacuum refraction index. So you're moving faster, the space is getting less, so you are traversing time. You're actually going forward in time. You are time traveling at this point, okay? Beyond teleportation. You're you're flying, buddy. Electromagnetic boundary conditions imposed by the presence of the capacitor plates or waveguide walls, the principal resulted in the modification of the removal of the electromagnetic zero point energy due to the suppression of the vacuum zero point energy modes with wavelengths longer than the cavity waveguide cutoff plates. The removal of the free space vacuum mode suppresses the scattering of light by virtual particle pairs, thus producing the speed of light increase and corresponding decrease. We know from standard optical physics and quantum electrodynamics that the optical phase and group velocities can exceed faster than the speed of light under certain physical conditions, but dispersion always ensues that the signal velocity is less than the speed of light, but recent calculations have proved that the Casimir effect system, the dispersive effects, are much weaker still than those associated with the increase of the speed of light, so that the phase group and signal velocities will therefore all increase by the same amount, so it doesn't rip you apart at the atoms. Note that in general, no dispersion shows up in all of the modified vacuum effects examined by investigators. So they're basically saying that you're not going to fly apart at the seams. I think, yeah, I might be wrong on that, and if I am, tell me in the comments. But I'm pretty sure that's what they're getting at. Like I said, I've got to go back and really do a good read of this. But here's the plates, and you can also, just for off the subject, take these plates and you can scrub them with some sandpaper and get them all rough, and you can run water through them, and you create these little bubbles, lots and lots, billions of little bubbles, and those bubbles carry hydrogen and oxygen. You can make hydrogen gas. Also, something called a second gas called Brown's gas, which is actually an ideal fuel to run vehicles or anything else. And the exhaust of those vehicles turns back into water. I can show you how to make one of these machines or give you links and steer you to how to do this. But that's beyond. You might not want to, because the that's when you get the black Suburbans rolling around your house. Okay. Demonstrating increase the speed of light, decrease the vacuum. Okay, this is gonna. Let's move on down to the next one now. I said that before, but for real. This is also interesting. I hate skipping ahead, but we have to. You can see here all of the tables and all of this. I mean, he goes through it. There's no stone left unturned, and he goes very in depth at explaining how all of this stuff works. And and he pretty much shows you that it does work. So here we go. Here we go. Conclusion. Okay. Envision of the VM teleportation in that animate or inanimate objects would be placed inside an environmentally enclosed vessel that would simply be moved into the teleportation device. The teleporter would be activated and the vessel would almost immediately disappear and then reappear at the remote destination as if it were briefly moving through a portal or stargate. The teleportation device might be required to operate in the vacuum of space outside of the Earth's atmosphere. We have shown two practically equivalent ways to implement teleportation. Okay, well, that just says all I need to say right there about that, doesn't it? Moving mirror, negative quantum vacuum energy can be created by a single moving reflecting surface, a moving mirror. If a mirror moves with increasing acceleration, then a flux of negative energy emanates from its surface and flows out into the space ahead of the mirror. However, this effect is known to be exceedingly small, and it is not the most effective way to generate negative energy. You know what that reminds me of? A scrying mirror, you know? But that's another thing, too. We won't go into that. Let's go. Theoretical, experimental, teleportation scenario. Um, why can't we get down to hellfire, people? Quantum teleportation. It turns out that there does, in fact, exist a form of teleportation that occurs in nature despite the numerous technical roadblocks described in the previous section. It is called quantum teleportation, which is based on the well known concept of quantum entanglement. Okay, this is going into what we are, their revelations, their big findings that they just discovered today, where they're in the lab right now um, doing entanglement experiments and moving single photons from place to place, which this guy right here goes through and explains it all very well and very in depth at how it all works and how they were already doing these experiments back in 2003. Well, actually, way before that. In 1935, they were doing these experiments. Same experiments they're doing today, telling people that they're brand new revelations, like quantum theory and quantum entanglement and all of these ideas about quantum teleportation are brand new and they just came up with them, which is all total lies, people. They are keeping us in the dark by rehashing old ideas and branding them as new. And people that don't know any better are like, hey, oh, look what they just found out. Isn't this cool? Well, it would be 40, 50, 70 years ago. It's killing me. It's killing me what they're doing because who knows how far we really are. You know, how I know we have anti-gravity devices, and I know we already have teleportation devices that will teleport animate, inanimate objects. Hell, the guy goes through and tells you that people were doing it with their minds. They already know that we can do telekinesis and how far psychic ability really goes and what all of us possess in our minds right now. You know, it's just something that you have to know you can do and then work on it. It's just like learning to play an instrument, exercising a muscle to get to these things. Remote viewing has been known about and well documented up to 100% by tons of people and taught to large groups of people, as well as astral projection, and which is just a form of out of body teleportation. You know, the whole, okay, sorry to be on a tangent there, but to better understand the concept of quantum entanglement teleportation, we will focus on the quantum wave function, quantum state function, aka quantum state function. Any quantum system, such as a particle that possesses a position in space, energy, angular, and linear momentum, and spin. This is the big thing that runs the whole thing around. everything anomalous and to do with 0 point energy. Well, everything that comes down to the bottom of what really runs everything. It's spin. It's a certain kind of spin. And if you look at pictures of Jesus where he has his fingers up, those three fingers, if you in the air, if you take that, do just like he's doing, and picture yourself spinning an object, just like you would, or take a ball and spin the ball, and look how your fingers are. Look at the position they're in. It's the same position that Jesus has his in these famous pictures of. They're telling you something, people. They're telling you about the spin. Okay, anything that we want to know about the particle is mathematically encoded. As we discussed in the previous section, the wave function can never be completely known because there is no measurement that can determine it completely. Okay, the wave function is the state of matter before an observer observes it and brings it into existence. Okay, the but we don't know. I mean, it's either a particle or it's a wave. Well, the wave is the state of all matter when it's not being observed. Okay, the old saying, if a tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it make a sound? No, no, it doesn't. Because number one, there's no one there to hear it. And number two, the tree, the forest, all of it is in a wave form if there's no one there to observe it. Okay? It's not in a particle form. There is no tree. There's only a wave. Okay? A wave of code, of mathematical code. No form. Okay? Formless. The only exception to this is in the special case that the wave function has been prepared in some particular state or some member of a known basis group of states in advance. By measuring one of the properties of the quantum system, we can get a glimpse of the overall quantum state that is encoded within. According to the quantum uncertainty principle, the act of doing such a measurement will destroy any ability to subsequently determine the other properties of the quantum system. So, the act of measuring a particle actually destroys some of the information about its pristine state. This makes it impossible to copy particles and reproduce them elsewhere via quantum teleportation. However, it turns out that one can recreate an unmeasured quantum state in another particle as long as one is prepared to sacrifice the original particle. The trick is to exploit the EPR process to circumvent the quantum uncertainty principle, which you're really not. Okay? You're really not. You're not circumventing it. As discussed previously, EPR discovered that a pair of spatially separated quantum subsystems that are parts of an overall quantum system can be entangled in a non-local, non-causal way. When two particles come into contact with one another, they can become entangled. In an entangled state, both particles remain part of the same quantum system, so that whatever you do to one of them affects the other one in a predictable fashion. So, in other words, if you apply information to one entangled particle, it immediately shows or is there on the other one. Okay? So you've actually teleported that information from one to the other in a quantum teleportation way. That's basically the gist of it, how that works, okay? The basic operation of quantum teleportation can be described as determining the total quantum state of some large quantum system, transmitting this state information from one place to another and making a perfect reconstruction of the system at a new location. In principle, entangled particles can serve as transporters of sorts. Okay, you get it? By introducing a third message particle to one of the entangled particles, one could transfer its properties to the other one without ever measuring those properties. But uh, that's all very finicky to me. Um, anyway, that's that on that one. Okay, experimental work. This is, if you want to know more about this, you can read it because you're going to hear a lot about this anyway. Because this is the new bandwagon that physicists are on, uh, to make it look like they are doing something, I guess. I don't know what they're actually doing, but they're not they're not making any progress if this is really what they're working on, which I don't believe. I believe they're working on lots of other things, but this is just what they tell us they're working on. So there you go on that. Um, Here we go. Teleportation of squeeze states of light and continuous quantum state variables. This is exactly what they're doing right now in 2019. Okay, here's a good thing: teleportation, quantum teleportation. Um, that they were doing 22 years ago. What are they doing now? Who knows? Something else. So let's move on to the next, shall we? That's not going to be a good way to transport anything but information, not material, in my opinion. E-teleportation, extra space dimensions and parallel universes, spaces. A literature search for proposed e-teleportation concepts based on the conveyance of objects through extra space dimensions and or parallel universes, spaces, as has yielded only one result. The present state of art in research on parallel universes, spaces, and extra space dimensions has been strictly limited to the work on developing a grand unified quantum field theory and a quantum theory of gravity, because gravity doesn't exist. Only electromagnetism, only magnetism in varying stages. That's gravity, is magnetism. Okay? Whereby the former necessarily includes the latter. Quantum gravity unified field theory research has been evolving since the 20s. Published the first papers to describe a model for the unification of gravity with electrodynamics, which they still have not done. Many of the more prominent theories today invoke extraspatial dimensions, the existence of parallel universes, or both in order to quantize gravity. So they came up with all kinds of crap to make this gravity thing work for them, when really it's just magnetism. Okay, it's just electricity and it's magnetism, it's electromagnetism. Um, Electromagnetic gravity. Just cover this word up. Unification theory, gravity theories. You can go through all of this. I'm not going to right now. Superstring theories, for those that don't know. Okay, superstring theory. Remember when that was the big Buzzword in physics, superstring theory. This is the new theory, okay? 1985, 88, 93, 94, they were talking about this, okay? That was just a something else, just like this quantum teleportation to keep people, because they don't really know what the hell's going on. They just bounce back from theory to theory. At the end of the day, no one really knows anything. It's all speculation. Okay? These theories come in a wide variety of interrelated concepts, and they are highly evolved form of theories. Okay? That means that they've been doing all kinds of other shit that's failed, so now they're back. They were back on this one. So this is a highly evolved one because it's hung on. Haven't been able to prove it wrong yet. They're based on the dynamics of string-like fundamental quanta, whereby the observed fundamental particles are manifested by the vibrational ground or excitation states of a quantum string, open or closed loop. The superstrings, the Planck length and size, there are different versions of these theories that require 10, 11, 26 extra space dimensions to unify and quantize gravity. Okay, so they've got to have up to 26 extra dimensions to work with to make this shit work. Okay, whereby the extra dimensions are curled up, compactified into balls of space with a radius. These theories later evolved into versions that are now called F and M theory, which is, you don't want my words for that. The mathematics behind the class of theories is very ugly, and it is difficult for even the best superstring theorists to make simple or sophisticated calculations and predictions. That should I shouldn't need to say another damn word. Then that sentence should be the first thing that everybody that's about to describe superstring theory says. These theories later evolved into motherfucking theory. The mathematics behind this class of theories is very ugly, and it is difficult for even the best superstring theories to make simple or sophisticated calculations and predictions. And so far, this class of quantum gravity theories has escaped experimental verification. Can't prove that shit, man. D-brain and the three brain theories of parallel spaces. Okay? D-brain theory is a recent incarnation of the original superstring theories, in which open strings corresponding to the fundamental particles of the standard model quarks, leptons, gauge bosons have their free ends stuck on a hypersurface. Okay. We talked about hypersurfaces earlier, right? Okay. I'm gonna let y'all go back and read through this. I'm going short on time, and I have a hard time reading about string theory because as far as I mean, I'm sure you've heard my very patronizing and cynical rendition of this. Um, so enough said on that. Let's go down to vacuum hole teleportation. An unusual teleportation concept has been proposed in 9902, which describes the teleportation of objects throughout our universe by using the geometrical properties of spacetime. Now, I like that idea because I've had a astral projected experience where I actually in got down to the microcosmos and saw the building blocks of reality. And guess what they were? They were sacred geometrical patterns locked together. Okay, dodecahedrons, tetrahedrons, just basic geometry, lots of lattice worked of geometry that I know broken down another level would have been just mathematical equation code, binary, but at this level it was beautiful. It was beautiful landscape of geometrical everything, everything. The proposal posits that there is a zero space that exists outside the boundary of our universe, whereby this zero space is a point form space where the distance between any 2 points is always equal to zero. Damn, that's crazy. LaShawn also calls this space a hole. Huh. Further requirements and assumptions of the model are time does not exist as a property in zero space. The cosmological principle there, which went out the window already, okay? There are no privileged frames relative to another place or point in the universe requires that the boundary or border of the universe must pass through every point of space. Virtual holes or zero space in spacetime must exist at every point of the universe, which are also called vacuum holes. Is this dark matter? Are we talking about dark energy? I hope not. Vacuum holes exist as virtual particles. That just makes me think of the nothing from the never ending story. Zero space is, I didn't think you could ever have zero space. Like there's always something there, even though it might be anti something. There's something. I don't know about this jazz. Vacuum zero point fluctuation. So basically, if there's zero space, there is no space. So if this is a teleportation. Yeah, of course, if you go into one of these holes, hell, you're always at zero. You're always where you want to be. Always. At present, none of the theoretical concepts explored in this chapter have been brought to the level of technical maturity. Well, no kidding, Joe. Okay. P teleportation. Now, this is a very in-depth. I'm going to take a lot of time on. So I guess this is where we're going to bid adieu right now. Fare thee well till the next video. The next video is going to I'm going to pick back up on this on psychic um, kinesis, um, teleportation, and phenomenon because this is going to take a long time to go through on its own. So until next time, please come back and catch the end of this because it's going to get really, really interesting from here on out as well. Hope you enjoyed it so far. I'll see you in the next one.